All right, I'm back with another episode 11 of Back to the Bronze Age. Uh, Audio version available on Spotify. This is the first time I am going to be on YouTube. Normally, I record the videos and then post them to YouTube. Today, we're going to be looking at Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 25 through 28. If my voice holds out, a lot of 4 issues, a lot of stuff to get into. So this show, I kind of read. I read from some old comic books that I bought and enjoyed as a kid. Prerequisite of the books that I talk about on the show. I had to have read them as a kid. I had to have purchased them as a kid during that time. So now some I might have gotten in some back issues. The 4 issues I'm covering today, actually I bought right off the spinner rack, or actually my mom probably bought them for me. I believe I was about 8, 9 years old at the time. So we're going back to 1978. So let's get right into it. I got a lot of books here to get through. Some good old classic Spider-Man. So let me just bring up the first issue that I am going to be looking at. Give me 1 second here. I think I figured it out. You'd think I'd done this before. All right, there we go. Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, and a Vault Full of Fear, the Masked Marauder, the Terrible Tri-Man. This is a cover by Keith Pollard. I don't know a whole lot about Keith Pollard. I know he had done a few issues, sporadically for Marvel, during this time. I think he was just starting out. I'm not sure. I like to try to find the signature on the cover for the artist. Some you can tell just right away by the style, and this one I would probably have to have looked. So I looked ahead of time to make sure that I knew, but right down there in the corner, it's Pollard. I'm not sure. Patterson, I don't know who that is, but I know Keith Pollard. Not a super well-known comic book artist, but not bad. I like the cover. It says Marvel's TV sensation. Of course, they're referring to the live-action late 70s Spider-Man with Nicholas Hammond that kind of flopped. I think they only had about 13 episodes of it. I know Stan Lee wasn't happy about it. It was kind of going on at the same time that the Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno was on like Friday nights, and the Spider-Man show. It got some good ratings, like the pilot, and then they had like had kind of like a TV movie thing about it where they had like a 2-parter. It was kind of cool, but it didn't last very long. I think they only did like 12 or 13 episodes. But the music, if you've never seen it, it's got that 70s like funk music. Really awesome. Some of the best music for superhero stuff. But the show in itself wasn't very good. It's pretty bad. And I loved it as a kid the first, 4 or 5 times I watched it. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm never going to see any cool villains. He's just going to be fighting like punks or street thugs. You're not going to see any cool. I mean, they're limited back in the late 70s. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the book here. They always have the little description at the top about the character, but this is a Spectacular Spider-Man. This isn't the main book, Amazing Spider-Man. In the 70s, The Amazing Spider-Man was my number one like go-to book. That was always the number one priority. That and the Avengers books. Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man came around. It started in 1976. This is issue 25, so it had been around 2 years. And it was a top seller because anything Spider-Man basically at that time, even though comic book sales overall were down. So it says, "Hear ye, in secret session is the executive council of the Magia met." The Magia is Marvel's version of the Mafia, if you can't guess already. So, But, a lot of times they have supervillains instead of just Italian soprano dudes. I am Big M, current leader of the Magia. I'm going to have to switch the view here. I am Big M, current leader of the Magia. We have read your proposal, yet we still do not see how you plan to succeed in eliminating Spider-Man, where the resources of the Magia have thus far failed. Now, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Pretty sure it was Magia. I've heard people pronounce it different ways. When I was a kid, I pronounced it the Magia because I didn't know what the Mafia was when I was an 8-year-old kid. I didn't know what the Mafia was. And then later on, a couple years later, I learned that that's Marvel's version of the Mafia. So I started calling it the Magia. And I've heard it pronounced both ways, so it doesn't really matter. And we're going to see the first appearance of a lesser-known Spider-Man villain here, and here it kind of is. But this is an awesome first panel. I'll get into the creators here in just a minute of this of the book, the writer and the penciler. I'll tell you what I know about them. Simply put, I know more about the wall crawler than he knows about himself. And while you wish him removed because he has interfered in Magia operations, they're talking about Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man 22 and 23. Those are when they, I had those as well. Those two books were Moon Knight's first appearance in Spider-Man books, where they fought some French assassin guy named Cyclone that was hired by the Magia to off Spider-Man and Moon Knight. And Marvel Team Up number 72. Marvel's Team Up's number 72, if I'm right, is Spider-Man and Iron Man against Whiplash, another assassin hired by the Magia. So I remember that because I think John Byrne does a cover of that book. Don't quote me on that, but I believe so. So let's get on. Oh, epic. I'm going to have to scroll over to get all this. Epic, and here we are with the credits here. I wish him destroyed, crushed, like the loathsome, murderous insect he is. I mean, what on earth is he talking about? All I ask is that the Magia leave Spider-Man to me, and I will bring you his head to hang alongside this empty mask. Now, beginning a Spidey classic like you've never seen. And this is Bill Mantlo, the writer, Jim Mooney, artist, Frank Springer, inks, Bob Hall, the editor. Jim Shooter had just taken over as editor-in-chief at this time from Archie Goodwin, which I've covered before. I'm not going to really talk about editor-in-chiefs today or anything like that. Real quick about Bill Mantlo, the writer. Bill Mantlo, to me, is best known as the writer and the foundation. He laid the foundation for Marvel getting two licensed properties, Micronauts and ROM. If you've read Micronauts or ROM, you're probably a fan of Bill Mantlo. He was the one that convinced Marvel, Jim Shooter, to kind of pursue the licensing of those two properties. And they were awesome. Micronauts, I had some of the Micronauts toys in the late 70s. They were made by Mego, who had those cool clothed action figures that were, I think they were like 6-inch figures or some. I had a few of them. I had like Spider-Man and Green Goblin, and I think I had a DC character. I think I had Batman or Green Arrow or something. I can't remember. I wish I still had them. Some of them are kind of valuable. But they went out of business. But the Micronauts toys were awesome. But Bill Mantlo created the backstory and created some new characters of the Micronauts. So I can't get too much into this. It's going to take forever. But he also did ROM, the Space Knight, which is really cool. And he did the background, for the toy. ROM was an electronic action figure toy that was made by, Parker Brothers, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was Parker Brothers. But Bill Mantlo went on. He also had extended runs, not only on Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man. He had runs on Marvel Team Up. He took over for Chris Claremont, as a matter of fact, on Marvel Team Up. He was kind of a fill-in writer for a while. He also had an extended run on the Hulk He was the creator of Rocket Raccoon. Um, and he's also the creator of Cloak and Dagger. For those who did not know that. Now, Jim Mooney, the artist, is kind of a throwback Silver Age artist. At this point in time, he's almost 60 years old while he's doing this, so he's well past his prime, so to speak. But some of his best work was at Marvel. He had done some Silver Age DC stuff like Supergirl and stuff. I'm not a big Jim Mooney fan. I never bought a book because Jim Mooney's art, but I never shunned away from a book. I never thought, oh, geez, Jim Mooney. He's serviceable to me. He's like a step below maybe Sal Buscema, but he's a step above a guy like Al Milgrom, in my opinion. Frank Springer, he would do some fill-in inks. I don't know a lot about Frank Springer, I'll just be honest. I never really encountered a lot that he did besides the Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man run. So I don't really have anything to say about him. So if we go down here, oh boy, man, it's hard to get. This is a huge splash page here. Carry on, my wayward son, and this is the character. This is the first appearance in Marvel Comics of this character, and he's a lesser known character. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Carrion later. For a moment, there's a silence as the Magia leaders sit awed by the very malevolence of Carrion's presence. He is kind of an imposing figure. You tell us you still will not tell us what you claim to know that guarantees you'll succeed in eliminating Spider-Man. There is some backstory with Carrion and Spider-Man, even though this is the first appearance. They had a big ongoing storyline about his true identity, where he originated from. And I'll talk about that later. And you have displayed a knowledge of covert Magia operations such as the Cyclone Affair. Those are the two issues with Moon Knight that I was referring to. And that makes you a very real danger to us. We reject your proposal. Please accept our sincerest apologies. And Big M here, or you'll see who this is later, clicks a button, but you cannot be allowed to leave here alive. No honor among thieves, I guess. Fools, Carrion hisses. All right, Grizzly, outside. He ain't even packing a rod. Careful. So Carrion drops the Spider-Man mask. He's reaching for that pouch in his hip. You're going to find out. You are going to find out what is up. And the hand, they say, is quicker than the eye. Dust. He's throwing dust. Allow me to introduce to you one of the most traveled of mankind's enemies. It has been called by many names: the pox, plague, pestilence. But I prefer the Red Death. I can't breathe, choking. So they're firing at him, and the bullets just go right through him. So he's kind of an undead. He's kind of an undead villain. As you can tell here, I don't know how you did that, creep, but one more step and you're a dead man. How perceptive of you, my friend. I warned you. And these guys have got some kind of, their faces are dissolving like acid. Oh my God, the bullet, it went right through and you're still coming. Be thankful I have no more time to waste on mere underlings. Big M, you have now seen but a sampling of my powers. Is your answer the same? You are powerful and unpredictable, Carrion. Too much of both. You would soon present a challenge to my leadership. I cannot allow that. As the floor drops from beneath him in response to Big M's secret signal, but defying gravity, Carrion remains standing in place, hovering in midair. The Carrion's a tough customer. And then leaving behind a stench of brimstone and a chill of the grave, Carrion is gone. We've got Spider-Man swinging through town here. Holy smokes, Jack, it's Spider-Man. And Aunt May still being in the hospital. currently recounted in Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, she had an extended stay in the hospital during this time. They also talked about it in the Marvel team-up books I covered. Things have been going pretty well lately, too well. Something must be wrong. Rats, if I wasn't so afraid of that, I have to say I'd check in to see a shrink. But what do I tell them? My problem is that even when I'm happy, I'm unhappy, that I blew a marriage proposal to the gal I thought I loved, and that a girl who's married thinks she loves me. Mary Jane Watson and Betty Brant, respectively. So he's up here just kind of pondering what's going on in his romantic life. The thing about Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, you're not going to see a lot of the main characters that's in Amazing Spider-Man. They felt like they didn't want to. I read some comic interviews decades ago about these two books, and they said that they didn't want to kind of steal the other book's thunder. This is the third Spider-Man book that was out. You had Marvel Team Up, you had Amazing Spider-Man, which is the big flagship book, where you're going to get the main characters like Mary Jane Watson, Gwen Stacy, who died. You're going to get the main villains. In Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man, you kind of get the hand-me-downs a little bit. You're going to get more Liz Allen, Betty Brant. You're going to get more Flash Thompson type. You know, the characters they don't go into a whole lot of detail about in the main book. You're going to get kind of the side villains a little bit. There's a few exceptions. They had the Vulture. They had the Vulture in a couple storylines. Mysterio in one, but normally you're going to get lesser villains. So he's just kind of pondering his future, past and future Spider-Man here. Another character that appeared in the pages created by Bill Mantlo appeared in the pages of Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. The book was a good vehicle to create some cool new characters. Characters you're not really, they're more like C-lister, D-lister characters. White Tiger, I'm expecting to see White Tiger at some point. Maybe in the MCU down the road. It's a cool character. So you can see him here, the White Tiger. Now, this wasn't White Tiger's first appearance. He's just jumping on some street thugs here. Hola, mis amigos. From the manner of your dress. Okay, he's Puerto Rican. It seems, just to let you know, it seems certain that car to which you sought access does not belong to you. The savage skulls stand their ground, and the tiger feels a pang of remorse. These are his people, street people. Now, what gives him his abilities is that glowing amulet around his neck. Just gives him a little increased strength. Nothing like Spider-Man. Increased strength, speed, and he's agility, hand-to-hand combat. Should have minded your own business, compadre, instead of minding ours. You are a fool, senor, to escalate grand larceny to a charge of murder. I only get booked if I'm caught, Tiger, and you ain't turning in no. You were saying, senor? So some pretty cool action panels here by Jim Mooney. Nothing that'll ever blow you. It's not as exciting looking as a George Perez or a John Byrne or anything like that. This is kind of a White Tiger, little bit of side story. He showed up quite a bit in late 70s. The espuma is scum in Spanish here. Leave the South Bronx, Senor Espuma. I guess I'm saying that right. I don't speak Spanish. And do not come back. I mean, a little, más o menos or something. I don't know. Comprende usted? Scum in Espanol. Carajo. You busted the man's jaw, Tiger. Get up and get going, punk, like El Tigre Blanco said. White Tiger. I'm getting, but I'll be back, Turkey. Count on it. Try it, and both the Savage Skulls and the White Tiger will be waiting for you. Won't we, amigo? Hey, he's gone. Try not to cover the White Tiger side story too much. Here we have a kind of a truck pulling into headquarters for thousands of Citibank employees. It is seen by its builders as a commitment to the future of a city perpetually on the verge of default. While to others, it represents merely another target, especially if those others are the Magia. Hey, you can't park here. Having trouble with my truck, Doc. You know of a garage around here? There's one open near the Midtown Tunnel. Thanks, Doc. Thanks a lot. He shoots some sort of gas pellet, knocks out the cop. Point to Big M. I'm in position. It's your baby now. The back of the van opens. There's a blinding flash of light and a roar reminiscent of igniting rocket engines. A rushing sound. There's some sort of rocket device winged rocket device that flies out of the back of the van. While within the sinister truck, your job is to disable the alarm systems while my bird droid proceeds to the vaults. Go. I don't like it playing second fiddle to a blasted robot. It ain't right, Big M. What if it blows a fuse or something? That robot, as you call it, is my greatest creation. It is infallible, while you gentlemen are expendable. Need I further elaborate on my threat? No, Big M. You're the boss for now. Yeah, big talk from the underling. Then proceed to your task, that the Magia may reign supreme in the global underworld. But the Magia's plan relies on striking with lightning speed. Big M knows that the sound of jet backwash cannot long remain unnoticed in the concrete canyons of Manhattan. Kind of an interesting note about the writer Bill Mantlo. He ended up going to law school in the late 80s while he was still scarcely writing some comic books. And he was hit in a rollerblading accident, and I guess it left him permanent brain damage, and he's like permanently disabled on 24-hour care. I just thought I'd throw that in. I forgot to mention that earlier. His comic career, he became a public defender somewhere in New York. He graduated law school, became a public defender, and I read all this in a comic magazine years and years ago, kind of about the sad, tragic tale of Bill Mantlo. But Bill Mantlo was always, one of my. I'd put him in the top 10 writers of Marvel during this time, if not maybe top 8. Either somebody needs one heck of a muffler job, or they'll move Cape Kennedy to Manhattan, or they've moved Cape Kennedy to Manhattan. Somehow I don't think either is the case, and it looks like I'm right. Costume gun sales. I don't know who calls them gun sales, but costume gun sales pouring from that truck, following a bird-shaped buzz bomb into the Citibank building. Spider-Man, now we're in for it. Spread out, he can't get us all. Now that's a great panel there. Spider-Man just wiping out like 3 goons. I always did prefer quality to quantity. Spider-Man again. I could exterminate him now, but then I would not learn how he stymied my plans. First at Grant's tomb, and now here. He seems as familiar as carrying with Magia operations. Don't run off, boys. I'm not finished with you yet. That's what you think, Webhead. You're right. It is. Well, you're right. It is what I think. Want to make something of it? I thought not. Pleasant dreams, Pinhead. Yoo-hoo, boys. 1, 2, 3. Ring Olivio. I see you. He's nuts. There ain't no way to shake him. And he's herding us right toward the vaults. If we're there, then the boss's buzzard makes contact. Another great panel here. Spider-Man getting caught in an explosion where Tri-Man, that turns out to be Tri-Man, hits the vault and blows it open. That metallic-looking flying thing that busted into the building, it was a bomb. The bird droid pulled it off. The vault door has been atomized. All we got to do is throttle this web-headed pain and we're in the money. Oh, is that all? I'm sorry to have to disappoint you when you're so close to retiring on your ill-gotten gains, boys, but it's past your bedtime. And I've got to check out the bird droid of yours before a second blast takes the whole blame building with it. Idiots. Ciao, goofballs. See you in the funny pages. Idiots. Is this power to attain supremacy over such gross incompetence? But Spider-Man will get no further once he encounters my creation. Oh boy, the 3-foot thick vault door has been blown off the hinges. Hey, that sound. The bird droid's still in one piece. No sign of any debris from the bomb, though. And flying for the safe deposit boxes. You're going to find out soon why he's called Tri-Man. Guess I'd better wait. That light, something's happening in there. The bird droid's shifting form, changing shape, transforming itself from a bird to a man, I think. He's attacking. Hi, big fella. Can't we talk this over like gentlemen? Somehow I didn't think he'd be amenable to reason. He slams Spider-Man into the vault, into the safe deposit boxes. He's ignoring me, going for the money. There's nothing he can spend it on except maybe a lube job. So he's got to be working for someone else. And the $1 million question is who? How do I find out? I could always try a direct approach asking him, hey, Baldy, got a minute? Mind if I ask a personal question like who pulls your strings? My Tri-Man cannot reply, Spider-Man, but perhaps I can provide the answer you seek. Holy smokes. The mass marauder, you misbegotten miscreant. And I need only recreated Tri-Man and my all-powerful Optiblast to maintain my position as Big M, leader of the Magia, and to snuff out once and for all time a sniveling nuisance such as you have become. That blast hitting my eyes, I can't see, I'm blind. The mass marauder, Tri-Man carrying the white tiger, and a helpless Spidey. Mine eyes have seen the glory. Next issue. Let me jump right into the next issue here. Another pretty cool cover there. I think that's Keith Pollard again. I don't see a signature anywhere. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure who does this cover. This might be Dave Cockrum, but I don't think so. I'm probably going to have to look that up because I can't really tell. But I don't think it is. I don't think it's Dave Cockrum, because I could be wrong. I know Dave Cockrum does the cover to one of these, but I'm not 100% sure it is. That's why I always like when they sign, you see the signature, but unless I'm missing it somewhere, sometimes they hide it, but I don't see it here. Still, Marvel's TV sensation, blinded by the mass marauder, Spider-Man plunges to his doom. Pretty cool cover. Not super crazy about the depiction of Daredevil here. Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man 26. The cover date of this looks like January. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, 1978 January. But I'm pretty sure this came out. Pretty sure this came out either late 77. I would have to look it up. This might be late. Both of these books might have been late 77. Or they might have, who knows, with the spotty distribution, it might have been a little, this book could have been maybe a month behind January of 78. Could have been February, who knows. But yeah, I'm assuming it's more like November of 77 when this actually released. I'd have to look it up, like I said. Let's get back into it here. And one more time, we're going to see boisterous Bill Mantlo, gentleman Jim Mooney, fearless Frank Springer. Same exact team as last issue. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, has faced more crises crises in his youthful career than most men encounter in a lifetime. That blast hitting my eyes, I can't see. Kind of a just a recap of last issue, but that is a pretty awesome opening page here. And I like how they do the title on the Mass Marauder's cape. You can see his Opti-Blast are hitting Spider-Man square in the face. The Opti-Blast of the Mass Marauder will ensure that you never interfere with the Magia again, Spider-Man. We'll get on to it here. Oh, Lord, it's true. I was staring right at the Marauder when his blast caught me full in the face. There was no time to shield He's striking again. I can't see to defend myself. Writhe in helpless agony, you meddling miscreant. I have waited for the moment since the day you and Daredevil first interfered in my plans to dominate the Magia. Classic Daredevil 16 and 17, going way back to right around 1963, right around 1963, I believe. Interesting. I've read those 2 issues of Daredevil. It's been a long time, though. I've spent months in prison workshops heightening the power of my Opti-Blast, since Werewolf by Night number 43 to be exact. Eventually, I am going to cover some Werewolf by Night. That's going to get you the first appearance of Moon Knight, as a matter of fact. I'll probably end up covering that issue. That's Doug Minch, the writer, and Don Perlin would be the artist there. But I really enjoy the first year of that book, where they have the artist. They have artist named Mike Plug doing Werewolf by Night, who he went on to be like a Hollywood storyboard artist. But awesome stuff, man. I can't wait to get into that. And of course, I was way too young to buy those off the spinner rack. I had to end up getting the Werewolf by Night. I had a pretty large collection of Werewolf by Night when I was younger, when I was in high school. I didn't have a complete run, but I did have the majority. It ran from 72 to, I want to say 77. Don't quote me on that. It's somewhere around that. But of course I was too young to get the earlier issues with Mike Plug. When I started reading it off the rack, it was Don Perlin doing the art. Until the paralyzing shock they deliver to the optic nerve is no longer temporary, but quite permanent. Yeah, Mass Marauder's blast used to just temporarily blind you. Thus, as my genius has brought me control of the Magia, so too has it allowed me to triumph over you, Wallcrawler. And now for the coup de grace. Spider Sense reacting like mad. Not sure why it didn't react like mad when the Marauder was lurking behind in the shadows there. I'm about to get creamed. Tri-Man's coming up on him. Yeah, here you can see Jim Mooney. Jim Mooney's kind of a throwback. It's classic comic book art. It's not very stylized. It much more resembles like a John Romita style. No offense. I mean, Jim Mooney's passed. I mean, he died when he was like in his upper 80s. He's been dead for quite a while, but he's just a throwback artist. Nothing that's really going to ever knock your socks off. But like I said earlier, but it's definitely more of a throwback. It's kind of, I always referred to him kind of like a poor man's John Romita Sr. Which, John Romita had that classic Spider-Man look. And Jim Mooney kind of follows in that. It's not a stylized look. Like, Ditko was much more stylized, like, artist. Later on, they really went stylized. Artists like Michael Golden. My all-time favorite Spider-Man artist is Ross Andru. That's the Spider-Man that I, as a kid, I was buying off the spinner rack. An amazing Spider-Man. But From the sounds of things, I say I leaped clear just in time and in the right direction. But I can't dodge blindly forever. Sooner or later, the Tri-Man is bound to connect, and ow, I landed off balance, my ankle. So Spidey sprained his ankle here. Feels like I've sprained it. Can't adhere to the wall. Oh no, there goes my spider sense again. Is it the Marauder? No, it's Tri-Man. So he gets decked here. Batter him, my creation. Never were you as powerful as you are now. What do you feed him, Marauder? Multiple vitamins? Spider-Man still kind of cracking jokes. You're going to see a more serious, like, Spider-Man in despair, though, in this little mini storyline. Mocking Doom Fool, your flippancy only hastens your downfall. The Marauder keeps blasting him. Yeah, this is some of Jim Mooney's best stuff. Definitely. Boss, the cops are coming. What? In my desire for revenge, I have jeopardized the operation. Well, Spider-Man couldn't stop you. I don't think the cops are going to be able to. There are still times to make amends, however. The Tri-Man has smashed open safe deposit boxes, take everything out to the waiting getaway van. But what about Spider-Man? Blind, he has no further consequence to us. Leave him. Just keep talking, mask mug. I don't need to see you to flip a spider tracer in the direction of your voice. Whatever happened to the spider? They even use this, they even used the spider tracer in an episode of the 70s Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man. And then he had his little gizmo. In the comic book, he uses his spider sense to pick up the signal. He uses his spider sense. He doesn't need an electronic device. Not that I know of, but not that I can remember, but he always used his spider sense to follow that signal. In the show, he used electronic device. That's what I'm getting at. So here's the Masked Marauder and the Tri-Man. You can see the Tri-Man transforming here into the bird droid again. They call him Tri-Man because he's humanoid, bird, droid, and he's also a bomb. So that's hence the Tri-Man name. Can barely stand on my bad ankle, but I can't let the Marauder massacre the police. Spider-Man still won't give up here. For God's sake, keep your head down. And the Marauder and his men are all in the van, Sergeant. Into your cars, men, after them. I don't think that'll be possible, sir. And you can see some vacuum-type device hooked on a helicopter. Unless they make patrol cars with wings, the patrolman's meaning becomes immediately clear. And the helicopter, drawing. Some of the Marvel artists were adept at drawing like equipment, military equipment. Herb Trimpe was real good at drawing stuff like that. Jim Mooney, just kind of a classic rough depiction of a helicopter here. Not a whole. You're never going to get a whole lot of detail in Jim Mooney's art. As you can see, someone like George Perez or John Byrne would have much more detail in their, or Jack Kirby for that matter. As long as the vehicle is like cosmic based or something, you're going to get a lot of detail from Jack Kirby on the equipment. Yeah, but we ain't reporting back empty-handed as Marauder and his goons fly off, and the Tri-Man already flew off. We've lost the Marauder, but we've caught Spider-Man. He's like, huh? It's always the police are after Spider-Man. I don't believe it. The Marauder's gone, and this cop is going to run me in out of frustration. Don't make a move. I don't like wall crawlers. Sorry, officer. We're on the same side. But I don't have all night to convince you of that. Look out for his webbing. It's covering us like a net. That's what I wanted to hear. Spinning it out blindly, I couldn't be sure. Maybe by the time it dissolves, the cops will forget about me and get after the real criminal, the Marauder. I can't count on that, though. Feels like I've fallen into a canopy. Got to shoot my webbing upwards. Hope it adheres to something. Thwap. As it hits on to the side of like a gargoyle cement fixture there on the side of the building. And this Jim Mooney picture of Spider-Man. I mean, it's obvious that he's using John Romita Sr. as a reference here, because this is like a classic John Romita Sr. pose of Spider-Man. John Romita Sr. is probably has the most commercialized version of Spider-Man. They've commercialized a lot of Todd McFarlane, to Todd McFarlane's dismay, because he didn't get any royalties from that. But if you're looking at commercialized versions that you're going to see, especially a long time ago, of Spider-Man, superhero merchandising wasn't really a big thing at this time. Every once in a while, you would see like a lunchbox or a T-shirt, but trust me, it wasn't cool to have those things. Now it's cool. Now it's the height of pop culture to have superheroes everywhere. Back when I was reading this stuff, no. If you had a Batman shirt on you in the playground, you're probably going to get beat up, because Batman was, kind of corny, and a lot of you've got that. I had a Marvel superheroes lunchbox all throughout elementary school. Probably at the time, I know at the time I was buying and reading this, and I got teased big time. But then some other kids actually deep down thought it was cool, and then they got theirs, and then it became kind of cool. But nobody had any DC stuff on. If it was cool to have Marvel, because you had the Hulk and Spider-Man on television all of a sudden. Thank God my webbing caught on something. I can't get on too many rants. I don't get it. I don't get it. Headquarters just sent word Spider-Man isn't a criminal, and now see current issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man was always flip-flopping. The Daily Bugle was, the editor of Daily Bugle, the J. Jonah Jameson, was always out. Editor-owner of Daily Bugle. He was always out to get Spider-Man. That's nothing new. I've got to stop, think this through. I finished a Spider-Man. When Peter Parker shows up sightless, my secret will be revealed. He's worried about that. The Marauder did this to me. Without my vision, I'll get him. I swear it. But first, gotta rest. Then follow signal for my spider tracer. Weak, numb, afraid, Spidey leans back under the shelter of the ledge. He does not see the rising of the morning sun. So here we are. That's Betty Brant, it looks like. Peter was supposed to call last night, but he never did. I wonder if anything's say. Isn't that Mary Jane Watson? Very rarely would you see Mary Jane Watson in the pages of Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man. Like I said earlier, that was kind of held back. They kind of had the agreement they were going to focus more on the college life of Peter Parker in this book, and then more of the main drama of his life in The Amazing Spider-Man, along with, with the characters he had romances with, and the main villains, and Aunt May. You're going to see a lot more of that in the main book, not the side book, if you will. But it was my decision to cool our relationship, so why would I be upset about seeing him with another woman? Oh, excuse me. Why, Betty Leeds. Yeah, Betty Brant married a guy named Ned Leeds. So she's now Betty Leeds. What are you doing? It's kind of a weird name, but... And you can see the landlord here, the landlady here in the background. Miss Muggins, the notorious landlady for Spider-Man, the one that threw of Peter Parker, the one that didn't know Spider-Man was hanging outside of the window one night because his arm was hurt and he was trying to get into his apartment, and she was in his apartment cleaning and throws a bucket of bleach on him while he's hanging on the wall. I might have to cover that issue. That was an Amazing Spider-Man. It just kind of summed up the kind of the issue, the normal type issues that, Marvel had their superheroes go through. Nobody ever threw a bucket of bleach on Superman, you know what I mean? Or Bruce Wayne, Spider-Man had to sneak Spider-Man had to sneak into his own apartment some nights. And it wasn't a nice apartment. It was a cracked hole in the ground. That's all right, Miss Muggins. I have a key. I'll let myself in, and they both are saying they have a key. So he's thinking, okay, these two hoes, Peter Parker's playing both these hoes. So you and Petey are that tight already, huh? No, not really. I mean, yes, we are. I mean, she's married recently. You sure? You don't sound so sure, sweetheart. Maybe you're letting your imagination fill in the blanks in reality. I don't know what you mean, Mary Jane. No, did Peter tell you he asked me to marry him? As Mary Jane's key turns into the lock, death in the guise of the carrion awaits within Peter Parker's apartment. Now, why would the carrion be in Peter Parker's apartment? Unless he knows who Spider-Man is. I know the story of when they revealed the carrion's true identity. It was like a big ongoing mystery. It's kind of an ongoing thing in the Spider-Man books that the villain, the identity, secret identity of the villain was like a big plot line of a lot of villains. Green Goblin, the Rose, Hobgoblin, the Return of the Green Goblin, the Green Goblin imposter. And Carrion was another one. I think I'll switch this to the full screen here. Probably should have done that earlier. Maybe I can get a little bit more of the comic in there. And my sprained ankle isn't helping. Still can't put any weight on it. That's the least of it. I've got to keep on the move, keep going. I'm afraid if I stop, the shock will set in. The shock of being sightless for the rest of my life. What's that from below? Sounds like police radio. Oh, look at this blatant advertisement they have here. Sounds like a police radio. My worst fears have been realized. They are searching for me. All points alert for Spider-Man, suspect in the robbery of the city court building earlier this morning. You hear that, partner? Let's go. He's got a Libertad para Puerto Rico, Liberty for Puerto Rico shirt on. Says, I've got to get home, think this through, but I don't even know which direction to go. Wow, do you think Spider-Man's a criminal? Who cares? It's not my problem. Watch The Incredible Hulk on CBS TV. They got a billboard, a little bit of subliminal advertising there. Thankfully, missing those comforting words, our web slinger inches his way onward. Oh boy, let's see. Despite what the police bulletins say, we've being introduced to a new hero in the story here, Daredevil. Spider-Man is no more of a criminal than I am. It's time Daredevil did some investigating on his own. As you can see, White Tiger is coming into his apartment here. Another side story I'm not going to get into with Hector Alea. Hector Alea is the secret identity of White Tiger. Here is Flash Thompson and his soon-to-be girlfriend Shashan from China. I think she's Chinese. Sounds of traffic below. I must be over a street, on a ledge or the roof of a building. Can't tell anything from the noise, and the buildings all feel exactly the same. I don't know where I am. My spider sense is no help. It's not picking up any emanations from my spider tracer, which means the marauder's out of range. Other than that, it only chimes in when there's danger. It only chimes in when there's danger. Hold it right there, wall crawler. I want to talk to you. And Daredevil doesn't know what's going on here. Pretty cool pretty cool panel here, though. You see Spider-Man's kind of stumbling back, and they depict his like stunned these little sparkles here by his mask. There it goes. I must be under attack. No, that's not what set it off. I've stepped back off the ledge. What in the blazes? I'm falling. His heart's pounding like a trip hammer, as if he were scared. My spider sense reveals that Spider-Man is no longer on the ledge. But why did he leap away from me? But why doesn't he just use his webbing to save himself? Can't be far down to the street. God, if I only could see to aim my web shooters. But the sudden jarring weight also has its effect on the crumbling cornice. Yeah, Spider-Man is kind of luckily reaches out and fires his webbing, but it gets into like a brittle corner there on the corner ledge of the building. Sounds insane, but Spider-Man's falling to his death. I don't know what's wrong, especially since my radar sense revealed him to be as powerful as ever. But maybe I'd better postpone the prognostication until the web slinger's safe. Prognostication. Spider-Man, reach out with your hand. Huh? Who? Blast it, man. I'm coming to rescue you. But you must reach out. He's reaching the wrong way. Got to accelerate my swing. They have time to think all this. And snatch him before he makes a permanent impression on the sidewalk. The save executed by the man without fear is breathtakingly flawless. And banking on the momentum of his swing. Just hold on tight, Mr. Daredevil arcs skyward his uncanny radar senses, analyzing the updrafts and wind currents, and unerringly guiding him to an accessible rooftop. You're Daredevil, you must be. What gave me away? My crimson costume with the double D on the chest, or my sunny personality? No, it was your voice. I recognized it. My voice. I don't get it, Wallcrawler. With a mounting panic, Spider-Man backs away from the costume benefactor. Suddenly, his bad ankle trips him into some makeshift cages of urban pigeon fancier constructed on the roof. And Daredevil, trying to make some sense of the meaning, cacophony of sound, is finally forced to say, "Hey, fella, what in God's name is wrong? What in God's name is wrong?" I'm starting to lose it. What's the matter, Daredevil? Haven't you ever heard the one about the sightless superhero? You're blind? I thought it was obvious. Some joke, huh? Daredevil cannot think of anything to say. You're blind? Of course, Spider-Man doesn't know Daredevil's blind. Nobody does, really. I don't know. There might have been a villain that figured it out sometime, but at this point, I wasn't really reading the Daredevil comic book that much. You know, I had been buying comic books for about 2 years at this point, reading them for 3. And I might have had, maybe 75, 100 comic books by this time in my collection, around 1978, maybe a few more, maybe a handful of Daredevils. I think I had 3 or 4 Daredevils. Very few I would buy off the spinner rack. The book, I love the character, but there was something weird about the book. It just didn't seem to fit. And, I didn't have access to my own money, obviously, so I had to, Daredevil was way down the priority list. And Daredevil, the book, wasn't a big seller at the time. And they were always trying to kind of find spots to kind of fill him in into other books, like Marvel Team Up was perfect. And Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man here. Says next issue, in search of the masked marauder with the blind leading the blind. And the reason I mentioned the state of the Daredevil comic book in early 1978 was it was going to be chopped. It was going to go back. It was going to go to bi-monthly. It might have been already bi-monthly status at this time, and that's kind of the that's kind of, you see the writing on the wall when a book goes bi-monthly. The X-Men at this time had just were still bi-monthly. That was about ready to change when Byrne and when Chris Claremont and John Byrne took back over. Not took back over, but took over. They left Marvel Team Up to go to X-Men. I covered that on the last episode where I covered some Claremont Byrne Marvel Team Up. But Daredevil was kind of in the same boat. The Daredevil character had kind of, like the X-Men, had a cult following, but it didn't equate. It was a small cult following, and a lot of Daredevil was beloved by a lot of the Marvel bullpen guys. But that doesn't necessarily equate to sales in any way, shape, or form. So I bring this up because what's going to happen in the next issue. Let me bring up the next issue here, which is one of my favorites. I remember I love this issue in particular as a kid. Now this is a Dave Cockrum cover. I mean you can see right here it says Cockrum down here, and you can see the signature. I'm not sure who AM is. It's like the finisher or the collaborator on this cover. I'd have to research that. I do not know who that is, I'll be honest. But Dave Cockrum. But I don't need to see that. I can tell by the figure work that this is Dave Cockrum. Dave Cockrum has a very unique, it's a beautiful style. But his poses that he puts his characters in is kind of unlike some of the others. It's easy to distinguish Dave Cockrum's artwork is what, if you're familiar with comic books. So it says, I sense deadly danger, Daredevil, but I can't see it. I'm blind, the blind leading the blind. And of course, I like how they depict Daredevil's radar sense. The first artist to do that was Wally Wood way back in the first year of Daredevil. But he had a run-in with Stan Lee. Wally Wood ended up leaving Marvel. But he was the one that switched Daredevil to the crimson costume from the from the yellow and red original Daredevil costume. Wally Wood made the double D on the chest and the crimson costume, and he also was the first to depict the radar sense, like the concentric circles coming out of Daredevil's forehead, like the way to depict that radar sense effect. So as you can still see, Marvel's TV sensation, they were all, they tried to hype those shows as much as they could, slap that label right on the cover of these comic books. And I ate it up at the time, I'll tell you. Still only 35 cents. I wish they still were. Some of these new Marvel comics coming out, though, I wouldn't pay 75 cents or 35 cents for, to be honest with you. They have to pay me to read them. It says the blind leading the blind. Great cover. Just one of my favorite Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man covers. I bought this off the spinner rack. Didn't keep it in great. I didn't keep my comic books in great condition at the time. Sometimes you were at the mercy of the condition that you got them off of the spinner rack. Sometimes they weren't in the best. They might have creases or folds or something or little tears. I didn't really care then. I started to care later. Years later, when the comic book stores began to open, pop up around town a little bit, I would get all these issues, and especially this issue. I would get a second copy of them for a good reason, because this comic book shot up in price very quickly, and you're about ready to see why when we go inside. Ooh, look at that. Looky who we have. Bill Mantlo, writer. Frank Miller, guest penciler. This was the first time that I ever saw Frank Miller comic book art. I can't tell you exactly if this is the first issue Marvel, the first comic book. I don't know that. I don't have that information. I always assumed this was Frank Miller's first Marvel comic book. I'm not 100% sure about this. I know that soon after this, Frank Miller caught a lot of heat. Everything he touched, obviously with Daredevil later, starting in late 79, when he not only took over the art from Gene Colan on Daredevil. Roger McKenzie was writing Daredevil, but he also took over the entire book because Daredevil was about ready to be canceled, and the rest is history. We know what happened after that. But this was my first time seeing Frank Miller, but I couldn't tell you the exact first time Frank Miller did any Marvel work. It couldn't be much more than this. Like I said, I had never seen him before, so this was all new to me. But after this issue, it definitely left an impression. Now, Frank Springer is still inking here. On the legendary Daredevil run, Frank Miller was inked by the legendary Klaus Janson, who really that's one of the dream teams, in comic book creation. So that's right up there with Byrne, Terry Austin. But Klaus Janson is just one of the best of all time. Spectacular Spider-Man is blind, the blind leading the blind, rendered sightless by the masked marauder, accused of complicity and hunted by the police. Daredevil, where? Over here, wall crawler, can you swing across the street? Now, that's classic Frank Miller. Now, this is the first time Frank Miller drew Daredevil. That much I know, because it was listed. Just years later in the comic book price guides, just 5 years down the road, you'd be looking at the value down the list of the Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. Bam, all of a sudden it says Miller to the side. And anything that had Miller on it shot up in value really quick. Even 3 to 4 years after this came out. Because he just got a lot of heat from after Daredevil. Everything just skyrocketed. He was one of the most in demand artists, and he was kind of the darling of comic books there for a while. And he always was, but he really skyrocketed in the 80s. Took over Batman, Dark Knight, and all that. But anyway, I know this is his first time drawing Daredevil. Over here, wall crawler, can you swing across the street? And as you can see, they have the Daredevil logo, and he's standing on the flagpole or whatever that is. The blind leading the blind. Now, he kind of draws Spider-Man differently. The mask is a little weird. The way he draws the eyes, it's almost upside down. You'll kind of tell. He also has a thicker kind of webbing line, a little bit. With Spider-Man as well. I think so. Just guide me, huh? Yeah, I mean, you can see right there. He just has a weird. It's almost an inconsistent way he does Spider-Man's mask. It's not bad. I like his style. He's got some. He does poses of characters that it's unmistakable. I'm not saying it's the greatest art, but it's the way it's stylized and the way he flows from panel to panel just look different to me. Much different than Jim Mooney, as you can obviously see. I think so. Just guide me, huh? Sure thing, fella. Steady yourself beside me and trigger your web shooter while I aim for you. Gauging the shot with his uncanny hypersenses, Daredevil hears the web line adhere to the distant rooftop. And this is and Spider-Man jumps off the pole and it almost knocks Daredevil back. And that's a classic Daredevil pose, Frank Miller Daredevil pose. My web's secure, right? I may be blind, but I'm not helpless. No, I should have known he'd try that. He can't stand being handicapped. He's just got to prove himself that he can cope, but he's swinging in too low an arc. Huh, what? And he slams into the chimney structure there. Spidey, pull up. Another classic Frank Miller pose here in the background of him swinging on his billy club. I like how he depicts. He always did this in the Daredevil comics as well. I like how he depicts how the the club with a click of a button becomes a cane with the hook on it that he can use to do his little parkour traversing of the rooftops. Oh, Lord, he's falling, and from the wild beating of his heart, he's starting to panic. And another classic Frank Miller depicting the arc of the leap and the gymnastical ability of Daredevil. Can't count on him to help himself until the hysteria passes. What do I do? Which way is up? I've got to get below him. Wind rushing past a flagpole. Perfect. Got to push off, drop faster than Spidey, and make the catch. Got you, fella. Now hang tight. So it's literally the blind leading the blind here. Spider-Man's, the blind Spider-Man has to learn to traverse the rooftops once again. Well, I put some space between us and the street, and Spidey's not happy about it. Hey, what gives? No more. I'm blind. My ankle sprained so bad I can hardly stand. See last issue. I won't take it anymore. I'd rather be dead than I should have expected this. He's starting to come apart. Lashing out at me, his churning guts tear him inside out. I could dodge his blows until he exhausts himself, but that's not going to bring him to grips with his blindness. Spider-Man, listen to me. Maybe there's a cure. No, the Marauder said the effects of the Optiblast were permanent. So I'm finished. Don't you understand? This is not a normal Spider-Man attitude. Obviously. The Amazing Spider-Man is finished. That's another classic Frank Miller action scene right there. Lord, I've forgotten how strong he is. The crack up. I can hear his heart racing. Here it comes, the crack up. I'm no good to anyone. Not to myself, not to anyone. I'm a joke, a sick, pitiful, pathetic joke. It's over for now. But for how long? I can't handle him alone. I've got to get help. Spidey, I've got an idea. Come with me. Sure, why not? What's the difference? Spider-Man's tearing up the rooftop of the building. Shortly in the Manhattan apartment of attorney Matt Murdock. I took a risk bringing him here. Even blind, he might inadvertently discover a clue to my secret identity. I don't think that's what he's on his mind right now. But I can imagine what he's going through. And you see some flashbacks of Frank Miller depicting Daredevil's rehashing of how he became how he lost his sight with the radioactive materials, saving this guy, and then losing his sight but gaining his hypersenses. Robbed of his sight by a blow from a metal canister bearing radioactive materials, young Matt Murdock. Now, this depiction right here, I think he was a little younger than that, but I can't quite remember. But it seems like he's drawing him a little advanced here for what actually happened. See classic Daredevil. See the classic Stan Lee, Bill Everett Daredevil #1. Yeah, Bill Everett drew the first, I think, 2-3 issues of Daredevil, and then Wally Wood took over on art. But like I said, he got into it with Stan Lee. They had a famous little feud that they even kind of spilled over to the pages of the Marvel Bullpen, the editorial column, where they were taking jabs at each other. Because Wally Wood really wanted to write the book as well. Making use of his newfound power and agility, Matt avenged the murder of his father and embarked upon a dual career as a talented lawyer and the costume adventurer called Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. Here we have Frank Miller, kind of signs of things that would come in the next, what would that be, about a year and a half after this? I'm definitely going to cover some of those Daredevils eventually. Hello, Dr. Orlock. Yes, this is Daredevil. I have a patient for you. Here we see the doctor. We're expecting a very unusual patient, and Dr. Orlock sits down to wait. Orlok's a good man. A friend of mine recommended. He almost gave it away there. If anyone can find a cure, he can. Here we have a continuation of last storyline of Betty Brant, Betty Leeds, whatever. Kind of having a little encounter with Mary Jane. They're both they both have a little thing going on with Peter Parker. The cleaning lady here. This is not the cleaning lady, but she's actually the landlady. It ain't bad enough being Parker's landlady. Now I gotta overhear the details of his love life. I don't get it. I rent to weirdos sometimes, but that sound is coming from Parker's apartment, and according to his girlfriends, he ain't home, but his door's open. This is one of the times I wish my Barney was home. Fearfully, Miss Muggins peeks in Peter's doorway, and she screams and witnesses a scene of mindless carnage, destruction, and terror. And on the wall it says, "The dead walk, Parker." And this is Frank Miller's rendition of Carrion. Much different look than Jim Mooney's Carrion. This is a much creepier looking Carrion. I'm not sure if he took a reference from the previous issues. You would think he would, but he draws them in a different style, and he's still walking in the air here. Trademarks all the malevolent Carrion. Soon, Parker, you must return. And treading thin air, the cadaverous villain departs. Many hours later, I don't understand. They should have been here by now. Dr. Orlok, they are here. Sorry it took us so long. I thought it best to wait till after nightfall. Daredevil helping Spider-Man? But that Citicorp robbery, the police, are often mistaken, Nurse Wills. And we will respect the confidentiality of our patient. And they've got Peter Parker here with a web mask on. His web COVID mask, I guess. Thanks, Doc, as I explained on the phone. I never understood how a mask just up to your nose would hide your secret identity. I mean, I guess if a person was like a total stranger, it might, but I don't know. I would, if I was going to rob a bank or something, I'd want to have an entire mask on. I'm just not going to have like a bandana, like a bandit mask on. Thanks, Doc, as I explained on the phone. It's all right, Dee Dee. Let me tell him. I was hit by something called an optiblast, Doc, a ray used to paralyze the optic nerve. I need to know, is the paralysis temporary or will I be blind forever? You sound as you've had some scientific training, my boy. If so, you're aware of the risk that such a severe neuroshock entails. Still, the optic fibers seem to be whole and seem to be recuperating with astonishing speed. Spider-Man's extraordinary physiology would account for that. Will it be a complete recovery? That I can't say, Spider-Man, given time and rest. Hear that, fella? You've got a good chance. Daredevil, you don't understand. I may not see again. I may not. And while I rest, the masked marauder's getting ready to strike. That robbery at the Citicorp Center was only part of a master plan. Oh, but I'm not done with your ankle. Hang my ankle. I've got a spider tracer on the marauder. I'm the only one that can find him, and I can't even see. Spider-Man stumbles around and wrecks the desk. The marauder's got the entire Magia behind him. He couldn't need cash unless he was planning something big, something terrifying. There's not a blasted thing I can do to stop him as he slams the doctor's desk. I mean, who's going to pay for that, right? Matt Murdock's probably going to have to pay for that because I know Peter Parker can't afford that. There's not a blasted thing I can do to stop him. Spider-Man, take it easy. You're not alone, fella. We're in this together. Trust me, man. Trust me. Daredevil? Seconds later, when Spider-Man has regained control of himself, Daredevil, if he should snap again, he understands the situation, Doc. He's been through a lot tonight, but I think he's all right now. I hope so. Daredevil, which way to the roof? Moments later, high above Park Avenue. Well, what's now, Webhead? Calling the shots. All right, my spider tracer emits a radio signal. I managed to attach one to Marauder's cape. And how do we home in on a signal? I've got certain senses beyond the ordinary which can detect the tracer's beam. Daredevil, there's something else I want you to know in case anything happens to me. I hid my face from you in the doc's office, but not now. Spider-Man reaches for his mask and hesitates. I can't do it. If anything happens to me, the newspapers will identify me. Let's just go, huh? You're getting morbid again. Snap out of it. You're liable to get us both killed. The Marauder will have a heck of a laugh if you died walking off a roof. We're back here. Looks like some sort of Magia headquarters here. As mentioned of the masked Marauder, reminds him that there is far more than just his own life at stake. Hurry, you mindless maggots. We must be ready for the moment of transmission. If you hadn't created the Tri-Man out of nearly impenetrable alloy, excellent with his deadly payload sealed in his android body, still, we're almost done. And excellent with his deadly payload sealed in his android body. My Tri-Man has become the perfect weapon with which to blackmail the good city fathers of New York. Ready the transmitter for my history-making broadcast. You can see the spider tracer is still on his shoulder here, or on his cape. While unseen, a spider tracer emits a subsonic signal detected by its creator, the spectacular Spider-Man. Picked up anything yet? Not yet. Wait. As Daredevil's kind of helping him as they're going through the kind of doing their Daredevil Spider-Man web slinging here. Yes, it's in this direction. We're headed toward Midtown near 6th Avenue. Can't let on that my radar senses have also picked up his tracer. Mustn't undermine his reviving confidence. It's stronger this way, DD. I like this panel here. This whole page is this is classic Frank Miller. We've got to cross the Avenue of the Americas here. How about if we use your web line? Fine. Care to do the honors, Hornhead? My pleasure, Webhead. The impossibly thin web line whisks across the avenue. Then, trusting in the line's proven tensile strength, the man called Daredevil uses it as a springboard as he cleaves the air toward a distant rooftop. And that's classic Frank Miller there, depicting him traversing that. John Byrne kind of did the same thing on the Iron Fist book. Some of those issues I'm going to go over I've got so much planned down the road, but some of those classic Byrne Iron Fist where he depicts the martial arts action, the kung fu attacks of sequenced of Iron Fist is pretty epic. Not sure if Frank Miller might have picked up on that or if Frank Miller just kind of did his own thing here, but this is definitely classic Frank Miller. Only to be met by one whose spider-powered muscles enable him to effortlessly leap the dizzy distance. Not bad, huh, for a blind man? No, not bad at all. In the mutual darkness deeper than the night. Classic, this is an awesome Frank Miller pose. This is kind of a throwback to Steve Ditko here, the Spider-Man pose on this panel. This is very Steve Ditko-esque. More of a spider type, kind of more of a creepy Spider-Man type pose here, hanging from two webs and the thick lines of the spider sense here. That's definitely kind of a nod to Steve Ditko by Frank Miller. I mean, when you think of Spider-Man art, Frank Miller's not the guy that jumps into your head, Two loners continue to search together for the hidden danger that lurks in the sleeping city. Just as these pages of Spider-Man and Daredevil kind of team working, getting around the city is just awesome. Frank Miller looks like he's getting more and more adept as the issue goes on as well. You can see that his style is starting to come out a little more. We're close, Hornhead, real close, as you can see him doing the effect of the of the Daredevil's radar sense around the city. Got to narrow my focus. Spider-Man's attuned to the tracer signal because of his spider sense, but I've got to sort it out from amongst all the rest. There, a skyscraper with power only on upper floors, construction equipment scattered around the sidewalk below. That's the one, that unfinished building on 47th Street. The penthouse floors are filled with men and machine. At this time of night, it's got to be Marauder and his Magia goons. Okay, my job's done. Go get him, Dee Dee. I wouldn't be much use in a fight. Drop the sob sisters routine, fella. I've said this before. I'll say it again. We're in this together. I only hope we come out of it that way. While on the penthouse on 47th Street. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I am the Mass Marauder, leader of the Magia. I suppose you're in have some earth-shattering reason to contract me in the midst of an extremely sensitive union negotiating, Marauder. Fools, what are mere labor disputes compared with this? You're looking at my Tri-Man, Mr. Mayor. In his humanoid and bird forms, he successfully plundered the Citicorp Center yesterday evening, obtaining the cash I needed to purchase the brain power of a famous nuclear physicist currently living abroad. And with his assistance, a warhead was implanted in my creation, armed with a payload of plutonium, which my men hijacked last week in New Jersey. See Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 24. So this has been leading up for months with this little Mass Marauder Magia storyline here. Thus, its third incarnation, my Tri-Man has become a bomb droid capable of leveling the financial capital of the world in one searing atomic explosion, which will make Hiroshima and Nagasaki pale by comparison. And all I ask is to prevent it is that New York be turned over to the Magia immediately. Oh, he just wants New York, you know. He just wants the entire city turned over to the underworld. Oh, that's crazy. It's like, oh yeah, cool plan there. Yeah, right. That's going to happen. But even as the mayor grasps in horror, they spelled horror wrong. Uh-oh, typo. Horror. That's what I like about you, Marauder. You aim for the skies, and Daredevil comes in. Another classic Miller Daredevil. Of course, he's got to have a little bit more classic style. You know, the Daredevil you see in his legendary Daredevil run that started in late '79, much more darker, stylized type Daredevil. But, I mean, he's on the right track here. I mean, he's a perfect fit for that character. Spider-Man, maybe not so much, but sure. And Batman as well. Obviously, turned out to be a perfect match for Batman. Everyone's been trying to copy Frank Miller Batman along with Daredevil, but everyone's trying to emulate Frank Miller Daredevil ever since 1986. Sure, did you expect me to stay away once I learned from Spider-Man that you were up to your old tricks? I'm shocked we know each other better than that. Too well, my crimson cretin. It will give me a great pleasure to destroy you in the same instant that I cremate the city of New York. You madman, launch the Tri-Man and you doom yourself as well. No chance, hero. The boss has an escape route all set, a teleporter. You should have known. The villains aren't going to blow themselves up in a nuclear holocaust. And his plans don't call for an extra passenger. Good God, the Marauder's just insane enough to pull this off. I've got to stop him, but the bomb droid is already rocketing towards me. But if I can't shake these goons in time, great panel here from Frank Miller. The bomb, Tri-Man's rocketing out of the building. Spider sense tingling. Something's about to happen. And heaven help us. He still can't see. Spider-Man on the window outside. He's our only chance. And bam. Oh, boy. High over a doomed city, Spider-Man begins a slow spiraling fall to his death. Next, Ashes to Ashes. Yeah, that's first time ever seeing Frank Miller, and man, I was like, I'm gonna have to remember that name. And then, soon after, it was a name you couldn't really escape if you were in comic books, but little did I know at the time. But yeah, I really enjoyed that issue as a kid. I remember thinking, oh man, I wish this guy were the full-time artist. All right, let's head over to the final issue that I'm going to cover here. Another great cover. I love this cover. This is Keith Pollard with Bob McLeod as the, pretty sure that's Bob McLeod, if I can read that. Bob McLeod would go on to do some Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man, the interior artwork. He was also, he's kind of best known, not only drawing Spider-Man, just a little. He had short runs on Spider-Man, but he's also known for the first issue of the first run of the New Mutants. That was, I think, they started the New Mutants. I want to say 1983, where they started the New Mutants book, and Bob McLeod was the interior penciling on that before Bill Sienkiewicz took over. So Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. So Bob McLeod is another. Has more of a classic art style, but it's a little more refined than Jim Mooney. I prefer Bob McLeod's art to Jim Mooney, but it's kind of similar. It's got that classic. It's not really stylized. It's just got that classic comic book look, kind of the throwback. But McLeod was not like he was newer to the industry. Jim Mooney had already been a industry veteran at the time. So let's go into here. And we are back. I'm gonna say, unfortunately, we are back to Jim Mooney. So we got our little. I got a little teaser. I remember being upset that it was. I didn't mean to hit that. I remember being upset the following month when I got this book that it wasn't Frank Miller, because I really enjoyed the art. The depiction of Daredevil and everything, and the swinging through the city and the jumping around, the stylized action movement poses of Frank Miller. I remember thinking, we're back to this guy, which is good art, but it's not nearly exciting as Frank Miller's art. So, in my opinion, So anyway, let's finish up this. We've got Al Milgrom as the editor now. Al Milgrom at the time was the cover art editor for Marvel Comics around this time. Still Jim Shooter, Bill Mantlo still a writer. So that's the only constant in this 4-issue little run here. You shall pay for your heinous crimes, Parker. And something is going on here. I think I hit the wrong issue. I meant to do this issue. That is my fault. I hit the wrong cover. I love that cover, by the way, where you're getting into full carrion, but that's issue 29. I was like, what's going on? Where's finishing the story? And as you can see from the cover here, it's carrion on the cover. Your spider powers can't save you from carrion, Parker. I was a little thrown off because I thought the cover was going to be something, related to the Mass Marauder storyline, but you'll see. This is Keith Pollard and Al Milgrom. So yeah, that was my mistake. I put the wrong issue in there. This should be Frank Miller. I was going to say, I thought Frank Miller did 2 of them, did 2 issues. I'm like, Jim Mooney Frank Miller and Frank Springer. So we are back to Frank Miller. So as you can see, this is a rendition here of what happened last episode or last issue while the Masked Marauders bomb droid carries its plutonium payload over the Doom City. Oh boy. Daredevil must not have been able to stop Marauder from launching the bird droid. I don't know the game plan, but I'm betting it's important that Metal Menace be stopped. And blind or not, stop it I will. Ashes to Ashes, and featuring the cadaverous Carrion. Bill Mantlo, Frank Miller. I remember this book went up in value as well because I ended up having to get the second copy of this issue years down the road because I wanted to have the complete run of this in better condition. And I think I ended up paying like $15 to $20 a piece for these issues, just like 4 or 5 years later after they were released, which was kind of unheard of for a book like, Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man. If you look in the price guide, these are two of some of the more valuable issues of Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man. Not the most valuable. I think the first appearance of Cloak and Dagger outdoes this in value a little bit. And I think there's another, I can't remember off the top of my head. There's another issue of Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man besides the first issue that is more valuable. But I think the most valuable issue of Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man is the first appearance of Cloak and Dagger. Don't quote me on that, but I think that is the case. I've got a price guide, but it's not worth looking at. So just for that info. So, but it's important. But I'm betting it's important that Metal Menace be stopped. And blind or not, stop it I will. Ashes to Ashes. Yeah, too bad Frank Miller couldn't have stayed on as the penciler. Let's get in. All right, here we go. Oh, good. More Frank Miller. A combination of good hearing and spider sense guided my shot, but it's taken me with it. So he was able to snag on to the Tri-Man bomb droid there. I snagged the bomb droid. Meanwhile, in the 47th Street penthouse of the Masked Marauder, I've got my hands full with these Magia goons. I can't help Spider-Man or reach the Marauder to force him to deactivate his bomb droid, as it shows Daredevil throwing his billy club around. Another classic Frank Miller. Fight on, Daredevil. Not that it matters if the mayor does not concede total control of New York to the Magia. My bomb droid will blow the Big Apple off the map. And in the mayor's office, the Marauder can teleport himself to safety, but what do we do about 8 million New Yorkers, Mr. Mayor? Daredevil's being held at bay. I don't know. The Magia goons are backing away from me. My radar sense reveals them regrouping at the Marauder signal into a firing squad. That's I like that panel. Finish him, obtain for me my long-sought revenge. With pleasure, boss. If it'll get us out of here faster. More classic Frank Miller. It would have been cool if they would have gotten Klaus Janson to do the inking on these two issues. Got to time this perfectly, catch them by surprise, get them to follow my leap, so that they rake the wall behind me with their rifle fire. So that it's almost impossible for them to miss. The conduit box, which controls the penthouse lights. The entire floor is instantaneously plunged into darkness. Now Daredevil's in his element here. Oh, very, very cool. This is a classic Frank Miller. Enveloped in shadow, guided by his uncanny radar senses, the sightless man without fear is right at home in the element he knows best. I haven't read these issues in a long time. It's probably been 20 years since I've read these issues. That's the last of your flunkies, Marauder. Daredevil's mask must be equipped, as mine is, with infrared lenses. He has no idea that Daredevil's blind. enabling me to see in the dark, but he thinks me blind, helpless at his mercy. How little he has learned of my power over the years as he slams. That's a great panel. That's an awesome panel. As he slams Daredevil with his Optibeam. The impact of my eye blast is physical as well as optical, you costume cretin. While heading northward through the night in shrouded skies above 6th Avenue. Don't know how high up we are. I've got to reel myself in before the bird droid scrapes me off against a skyscraper. And once aboard, the bird droid's gleaming back. Got to use my spider sense. I've never used it before to detect the bird droid's power source. His remaining senses straining to the utmost, Spider-Man discovers more than he bargained for. Lord, the bird droid's ticking. It's a bomb, an H-bomb to be exact. Marauder, in the name of humanity, stop your bomb droid. Why, Daredevil? What's humanity ever done for me? Got to keep him occupied. Make him think his optiblasts have blinded me. Can't blind him. He's already blind. While I bounce my billy club off the instrument bank behind him. You should be grateful to me, you crimson clown. With your optic nerves destroyed, you won't even witness your own demise. And he knocks the Marauder's helmet off. It worked. He dropped the bomb droid's control box. You interfering, insufferable idiot. Careless Daredevil, you let the Marauder catch you off guard. I've borne the final indignity from you, Daredevil. Marvel called them the Magia to avoid pissing off the Mafia or just to separate readers from reminders of the brutal reality of the Mafia. Well, I mean, they always did that. I'm not sure if there was any. I mean, it could have been. Marvel bullpen is the Marvel bullpen was located in Manhattan. Now I don't know how much of that. Marvel, they used unlike DC, of course, Marvel used New York City. DC had, fictional cities. But that's an interesting question. I couldn't tell you. That might have been the case. We don't want to refer to the Mafia as the Mafia. Of course, it's a super villain underground. So, the Mafia really wouldn't be a threat to... so I probably had to come up, but they did that. They had Roxxon Corporation which was Exxon. You know what I mean? They did Roxxon. They had the Brand Corporation, which I don't know what that would refer to. I mean, DC had like Star Labs, of course, later on LexCorp, but yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, but probably just because of the brutal reality of the Mafia. They just wanted to make their own. And I don't know if it was a comic code thing. It could have been. There were certain words they couldn't say in the comic code. More to like horror aspects. They couldn't say zombie. They had to make up their own word for zombie. Yeah, I was thinking about that. New York in the 60s, 80s. But yeah, good point. Similar company names. Yeah. The most obvious one is Roxxon Corporation. I don't know how familiar you are with like Bronze Age comic books. But yeah, the Roxxon was obviously Exxon, which, everyone thinks of it as some sort of evil corporation. So I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating. But once I press this button, the bomb droid will be armed and set to explode upon impact. Nothing can stop it. Nothing. Farnham, don't be a fool. Yeah, that's the Marauder's secret identity. The Masked Marauder was never like a top villain, Exxon. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming Roxxon, Exxon. Marvel was always kind of doing that tongue in cheek, we're just going to indirectly refer to them. I'm 9 years old when this came out, reading this. I don't know. I'm in my 50s. I didn't know what the Mafia was. I had no idea what the Mafia was when I was 9 years old. But the Marauder merely laughs shrilly. That's a good point, though. It'd be interesting to look up the actual reasoning. probably just to be clever, And the moment of mad triumph comes ever closer. The bird droid's doing a nosedive. I've got to hang on and get to the power source before the inevitable happens. Great little sequence here by Frank Miller. Yahoo, that did something. Boom. That's awesome panel right there. Classic pose by classic Frank Miller pose there. You'll see a lot when I get eventually to doing some Frank Miller Daredevil. I mean, how can you talk about the Bronze Age of comics and not read a few Frank Miller Daredevil? You'll see some of these classic poses. Something's far more than our embattled hero can even guess. The controls have gone dead, but that's impossible. No, Farnham, it means a man you blinded has just performed an act of incredible heroism. Whap. They have some interesting sound effects for punches. And if he dies stopping your insane scheme, I swear to you, I'll see that you join him. We're getting into the dark Daredevil here. Now, this is classic Frank Miller panel right here, where you see the highlighted double D. And I think you kind of see Frank Miller kind of coming into his own here, early Frank Miller stuff, and maybe he's taken a liking to Daredevil. I know he really lobbied to get that Daredevil to take over Daredevil. I mean, it was canceled. It was basically canceled. So in 1979, it was coming to an end. It was on the chopping block. So I remember that. All of a sudden Daredevil wasn't cool, and then all of a sudden Daredevil was all the rage. In 1980, it's like, and I had read some Daredevil off the spinner rack, but I wasn't really into the character. I didn't really like the villains. He had some cornier villains, the Jester and the Owl, and love the Frank Miller Daredevil, the Hand, Stick, of course, Elektra and Bullseye. Yeah, amazing, man. Felt very. Oh yeah, it was It was such a departure from what was going on at the time with comic books. Now, I love Bronze Age. I love Bronze Age comic books, but the 1980 Daredevil was like something you almost felt like it was an adult magazine when I was getting it. I'd pick it up because that was around 1980 is when the comic book shops started, the specialty comic book shops. We had two of them in our hometown, the town I was living in Indiana, growing up. They were both on the edge of town. They were both like bookstores, but they advertised also comic books. And it was you go in there, it was an old dilapidated like garage building, turned in, and they had their own dedicated comic section, like comic books here. And you go in, and they'd have the wall books, they'd have the glass case with the more valuable Silver Age comics. And I'm like, oh, wow. I remember the first time going in there, it was called Bright's Book Exchange. And it's on the edge of town. We had to ride our BMX bikes out there like miles. But, man, and that's when I first started buying Daredevil. My neighbor friend across the street his parents had a college student, a graduate student that they would rent a room out to, and he was older. He was in his 20s, and he would buy comic books and read them, and then he put a little black check mark on them to indicate, and we asked him, and then he'd give us the comic books. He'd end up giving us all the comic books, so we had another comic book stream and revenue stream. And then we asked him, can you stop putting those black check marks on it? If you're going to give it to us, we were bratty kids. And he's like, sure, but he never did. He kept putting the black check mark on it. I read this one. But he always got Daredevil. He started buying the Daredevil. That's how I was able to manage to get those first Frank Miller Daredevils. And then, of course, I got a comic folder out at the comic book shop, and Daredevil was became one of the priorities. As long, with X-Men and my whole comic book buying priorities flip-flopped in the 80s. It was Moon Knight, Daredevil, X-Men, above Avengers, Spider-Man. Now I still, I would still get certain issues of Avengers and everything, but going to comic stores in the 70s and 80s was such a great experience. See, I think 1980 was when that shop opened up. Wasn't a lot of places you could get back issues. There was one there was a college campus used bookstore that every once in a while I'd go in and be able to find a box of old back issues, but they were always in crappy condition. But, I could find stuff from the early 70s, and I'd sit in there and read. I'd grab a stack of them and just sit in there and read them. I didn't buy them a lot of times. I didn't have any money. But, yeah, that was awesome. I mean, I loved it. There's something flying erratically towards Central Park. It must be the bomb droid, and it's losing altitude fast. I'm almost through this here. Like I said, I haven't read this in decades. I read this so many times as a kid, though. It was just like, I wouldn't say I have it memorized, but kind of revisiting. It's kind of jogging my memory here. Lord, I've not only defused the warhead on this bolted buzzard, I've cut its flight control too. Armed or not, it's still wreak incredible havoc if it crash lands in Manhattan. I've got to do something. But what? I can't see. Don't know how close I am to the street. Oh my gosh, screams. We're lower than I thought. Spider-Man is trying to kill us all. He's insane. Spidey can't catch a break. He's always catching, bad intentions. No, I think he's trying to save us. It's nice to know some people in this town are more perceptive than J. Jonah. After all, if I was the villain Jolly Jonah paints me, I could have let this thing crash instead of finding a way to pull up at the last minute. I don't know how I did it, but it's almost as if my spider sense has been somehow heightened since my blindness. Imagine that. I seem to be able to see danger instead of just sense it. Thus, through a mysterious twist of fate, Spider-Man has discovered a secret of sightlessness also known to the man called Daredevil. But whether he will live to make use of that discovery remains to be seen. I seem to sense a flat expanse, empty, no buildings around. I've glided the bomb droid in low, slowed it down. But what if I'm wrong? Moments later, our sightless web slinger scrapes himself up off rough cobblestone. The smell of trees, grass, things I never seemed to notice before. It means I did it. I downed the bomb droid in Central Park. The danger's past. Freeze, wall crawler. This is a cool panel here. Fantastic. I can almost pinpoint the position from their heartbeats. It's like having a TV cop show translated into Braille. I remember I didn't know what that meant as a kid. Hey, I bet I'm the world's first sightless superhero. Yeah, not quite, wall crawler. No sudden moves, web slinger. Gilroy, okay. Look out. A billy club, that means the Daredevil is here. Please holster your guns and back away from Spider-Man officers. I'm taking them out of here. I love Frank Miller's use of the contrast here of the shadows. I don't have time or the inclination to argue. Wait till you hear from your superiors. They're probably trying to contact you now with orders to converge on a West 47th Street penthouse, arrest the defeated dregs of the mass marauders Magia. Stunned, this disbelieving cop rushed to their patrol cars, and Daredevil's message is affirmed. It's over, web slinger. We've won. Bursting with the news of his enhanced senses, Spider-Man reaches out. Webslinger? Suddenly he realizes he sees Daredevil's preferred hand. Webslinger? Spider-Man's eyesight is returning. Daredevil, I can see again. That's great, fella. Come on, we both need a rest. But the Daily Bugle says he's a murderer, and the captain says he's a hero. Who are you going to believe? So we're going back here to Peter Parker's decimated apartment by the Carrion that we saw last issue. Poor Spidey. The dynamics of his secret identity public perception, classic recurring arch enemies, friends and girlfriends, 70s, 80s, New York, just so cool. Art art was appealing to me back then. Yeah, I always liked it. I always liked the whole thing of him being portrayed as a vigilante and when other heroes got away with it for some, J. Jonah Jameson had it out for him. I need to cover some of the issues where that is kind of one of the storylines where Jay Jonah is really after him. I mean, Jay Jonah for a while they had a story, they had that storyline in the mid '70s when Lynn Wein took over the writing of Spider-Man, where he was uh, obsessed with destroying Spider-Man. Daredevil and Spider. He would create. He would hire like Spencer Smythe, for a new Spider Slayer. Oh, that's an awesome issue where the one where they have that like humanoid looking Spider Slayer with the projector screen on his chest with J. Jonah Jameson's. Yeah, you remember the Spider Slayer? Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've read all that stuff. It's been a long time, but yeah, that's Ross Andrew. That's Ross Andrew art with Lynn Wein, who took over from Jerry Conway, Spider Man in 1970, late 75 to 76. That's when I first started reading Spider Man. Yep. Dee Dee and Spidey the best. The Thing and Spidey, my most favorite Marvel team ups and 2-in-1s. Oh yeah, man. Some of those 2-in-1. I'll be going over some. Have you? Yeah, you remember that with J. Jonah Jameson's face, and then I think the following issue was the introduction to the Will-O-Wisp, kind of a offbeat Spider-Man villain. Yeah, Lynn Wein died. He died just a couple years ago, I believe. Yeah, I love Lynn Wein, man. Without Lynn Wein, you don't have a lot of the new X-Men. I mean, Dave Cockrum was the guy that really did the most on that. But you don't have Wolverine. I mean, the guy created Wolverine, right? I've got so many issues to cover coming up on this, man. Yeah, I'm going to be going. I'm going to try to do this twice a week. I was just kind of doing this as a goof, unscripted. I just kind of do it sporadically, at the spur of the moment kind of thing. But now I've been thinking about all those classic issues I want to go over, like the Hulk 180, 181, and which, it's not they're not the greatest at that time, but they turned out to be classics, later. But I've got a lot of stuff planned going over, but I just love looking at these old comic books. I'm just so distraught about the current state of comic books, man. It kind of leads me to just want to dive right back, Yeah, Will-O-Wisp was randomly one of the first comics I owned. I remember he died. Oh, exactly. Yep. I remember that. I always thought it was a cool concept for the character, but it was kind of a weird character to have Spider-Man fight, Actually, I don't anymore. I used to have a very good collection. There's a long story of how I lost my collection decades ago. I had a very, very good collection. Now, I still have some, but not the collection I used to have. I lost my collection in right around the year 2000. I abandoned my comic book collection. It's a long, painful story. I think about it almost every day of like, why didn't I? Yeah, I lost an amazing. I had thousands and thousands of Bronze Age comic books in awesome condition. Probably, I don't know if I don't know if it'd been worth six figures. Probably more like about maybe $75,000. And I just abandoned them. I abandoned them. You don't want to hear this story. It wasn't my brightest couple years. Oh, you have many old fantastic. Oh, I'm definitely going to be covering some old George Perez Fantastic Four. Ooh, so good. From around 1976. Early 76 to 77, 78. That's Lynn Wein too, writing some of those. So back to the story here. I appreciate the chat, though. I mean, I didn't even know any. I'm doing this on YouTube for the first time, so I don't have to upload it, and I do an audio version that I put on Spotify just for the hell of it. But where I just kind of ramble on. I used to just ramble on about comic books, but I was like, I might as well read some of them while I'm at it. So they're in Peter Parker's apartment here, and you can see the message that's scrolled up on the wall here. The dead walk, Parker, from the Carrion. So we're going to swap right over to the Spider-Man Carrion storyline here. As Spidey comes in, he sees everyone in the apartment. He's got the shades on right now, and he says, he's like, who trashed my apartment? Someone who would have preferred trashing you, Parker. You're a newspaper photographer, journalist. Make enemies. You start thinking, son. We'll start questioning. But the interrogation proves fruitless, and finally the dissatisfied police depart. And he explains, why do you have those glasses on? He got into a lab accident, he tells them. Madman, you could fit Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin. He knows I'm Spider-Man. But Harry's been normal since our last battle. Yeah, that's when that's the storyline of when Bart Hamilton, the psychiatrist takes over Green Goblin. And he thinks it's Harry the whole time, but he's actually battling Bart Hamilton, who discovered Harry Osborn's Goblin arsenal. That's a great run too. That's Lynn Wein, Ross Andrew. Says Amazing Spider-Man when it's registering danger inside the library. Oh my gosh, Hector, he's in there waiting for me. Hector, of course, is the White Tiger. Security guard out cold. Looks like he fell down the entire flight of stairs, or he was pushed. Lord, what if Hector didn't have a chance to become the Tiger? He knows. Yeah, obviously he knows his identity here. I love this. Die, Parker. Die, murderer. And the Carrion jumps him here. Because it's exhaustion or the shock of finding Hector's unconscious body, Peter Parker's vaunted spider sense reacts just a fraction of a second too late. And the Carrion smokes him here. Couldn't avoid his blow. He smashed Hector and me off the balcony. We're falling down into the main reading room. Use your cursed spider agility. Save yourself. So obviously Carrion knows. We already knew that. Who Spider-Man is. I can spoil who the Carrion's secret identity is, but decades later, right? Blasted, I was going to play possum alongside Hector, see what would happen. But there's no point. I don't understand who he is or what he's after, but he knows I'm Spider-Man. He knows. You recovered quickly, You recovered quickly, Parker. You are faster than I remembered. Remembered, ugly? I don't think we've ever met. And I wish it would have stayed that way. There's something dangerous about his hands, the way he keeps trying to touch me. Got to avoid. He's a lot like an old Daredevil villain called the Deathstalker. Sweet Mercy, Holly Gillis, Empire State University art freshman, has come to apologize for the cold shoulder she's given Hector Alea these past few weeks. But she didn't expect this. And inside the campus library, since you know who I am, it seems silly to go pulling my punches. Your spider strength is useless against me, Parker. For I command absolute dominion over all that lives or once lived. All organic matter turns to ash at my touch, to dust. As if to prove Carrion's claim, the oaken table crumbles. I mean, we're right out of the Masked Marauder saga, and they don't skip a beat. They go right into the next storyline. They go right into the next storyline that would go on for a few issues. But your demise will not come so easily. I wish you to suffer for all the months I have suffered because of you. There must be a full moon tonight. This Joker's a certified loony. Still, I've got to fight back. But at that moment on the balcony above, and you know, it's funny, you don't get to see Peter Parker in the comic books back then. You don't get to see him actually fight where he knows, out of the Spider-Man costume, because normally the enemies don't know he's Spider-Man. Hector, it's me, Holly. Why don't you answer me? First the guards on the stair, now sounds of fighting. I've got to find the light. My eyes. Pain stabs searingly into Peter's brain through his sensitive optic nerves. He is blind again, albeit momentarily. As Carrion grabs him here. Soon you will wish I had obliterated you, reduced you to dust as I did the table. But I wish to prolong your agony, Parker, until you have paid for your heinous crimes. No, not yet. Through the death penalty is the proper punishment for murderers Parker has killed, but no court shall judge him, for vengeance belongs to Carrion. She says, oh my God, whoever you are, stop it. You're killing him. Dust to dust. That's the issue that I mistakenly clicked on. Back then, with so many panels and pages, you could really follow the fights moment to moment. I'm looking hard into recollecting old comics. Oh, definitely. They just don't make them like this. Don't get me started on current state of comics. I could go on. It's just, there's a few exceptions. Of course, yeah, that dynamic was cool too. Some enemies barely knew Spider-Man. Some knew who he was. Yeah, well, I don't know if you know. I mean, I'm not really spoiling anything. You can Google it. But the Carrion turns out to be the clone of Professor Miles Warren, who was the Jackal, the original Jackal, and it was kind of the focus of the original Clone Saga that they've tried to redo in the pages of Spider-Man so many times. They can't come up with anything new, but that's who eventually it was revealed, because it was a big mystery, much like the whole Hobgoblin in the 80s. I don't remember who. The Jackal. Yeah, so Carrion is the reincarnation of the clone. It's a clone gone wrong, obviously, because he's still of the Jackal. But it's kind of weird because the Jackal has a much different body type as a villain than the Carrion. So it's a kind of a mutated version of the clone of Professor Miles Warren. So just to kind of jog the memory on that storyline that went on during this time, because I remember I couldn't wait to get the next issue. In a month, when you're a kid, we didn't have the internet or anything. When you're a kid, you can't wait for the next month. Who is the Carrion? It was a big mystery for months and months and months. As a kid, months and months and months seems like a lifetime. And then they said, well, that went over well with the readers, and the sales went up, with these ongoing mysteries of who these villains are, that they kept repeating it. They did the same thing with the Hobgoblin, but the editorial staff started, because the creative team changed hands in the 80s during that whole milking of the Hobgoblin run and the who is the Hobgoblin. Once you tried to figure out, once you thought you had it figured out who the Hobgoblin was, they always changed it. Like they kept adding another layer to the mystery, because it never turned out to be who you thought. They were leading to who the identity of the Hobgoblin was, and they kind of ruined it. They had some editorial disputes, and the book changed hands, and then they kind of ruined the whole Hobgoblin saga. I still loved it as a kid. Didn't love the Hobgoblin saga. Loved how Green Goblin and Gwen Stacy both died and stayed dead for a long time. Yeah, when the Hobgoblin saga jumped off, I loved it. But then they went on and on and on and on, and they couldn't agree. The editorial staff agreed, because it was a big event in comic books at the time, because it coincided with the black suit, in 84, 85. I know Ron Frenz was the artist during that time on Amazing Spider-Man. And then I think they added too many pieces to the puzzle. They had the Rose, and then you didn't know who the Rose was. And then, they had they just had too much going on. But yeah, they dragged that out and they eventually ruined it. It could have been so much better than it was. But I mean, that's what happens when you get too many cooks, too many cooks trying to prepare the meal, I guess, or whatever the saying is. But yeah, I got tired of the Hobgoblin saga, and I loved it when it first came about, But that wraps up my 4 issues of Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. Those were some of my favorite issues as a kid. I pored over those when I was a kid, when I got them off the spinner racks. I read those countless times, and it was kind of cool to revisit those, as it is with most of the issues I cover here. But some of them I know better. This one I needed to kind of refresh a little bit, but I just remember the Frank Miller. I had to cover it. Also, although multiverse is dope in many ways, back then only one of each hero and villain, when they would die and go to prison, was important. That makes sense. Of course, I hate multiverse stuff. I'll just say it. I just don't like it. It lessens your universe. It like you say, the stakes aren't as high. I like high stakes. You know what I mean? I like it. Look at the death of Jean Grey, and look at the death of the Phoenix in the X-Men. And we'll be going through all that later, man. I like I said, I got hundreds of issues I can go through. I've got planned. I've already got like the next 4 or 5 episodes already planned out. But yeah, I like when things make sense. And when you dilute your universe, and that's what I love. See, I didn't like DC Comics at this time. Now I started reading some DC when George Perez, one of my all-time favorites, started doing Teen Titans over when he crossed the street over to DC. It wasn't cool in my neighborhood to be reading DC Comics. Glad I found your channel. Yeah, hey, I appreciate you stopping by. I'm not going to go on too much longer here, but I try to keep them. I'm already over 2 hours. I try to keep them right around that. But yeah, I'm going to try to go live. This is usually I'm live on Twitch, but this is my first time live on YouTube. So I think I'm going to continue on YouTube a little better, so I don't have to upload videos, but to YouTube. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to try to get on a regular schedule. Now, it won't be an exact schedule because of my work. I work a full-time job and everything. But, probably one night a weekend late, I will be covering these comic books. Next episode, I think I'm going to be covering, I'm trying to make sure that I don't cover Claremont and John Byrne all the time. But it's very hard not to cover Claremont and John Byrne on different titles, because that's my all-time favorite team. My Twitch handle is Count Chocula. Yeah. Yeah. I could probably, I don't have the link here. I could probably leave it in the, yeah, I do. Let me find it real quick. Let me stop my audio recording real quick here so it doesn't go too long. I'll have to edit my audio recording a little bit. I just post them on Spotify. Nobody, I get very few clicks, but I don't care. I do this for me. I have fun talking about comic books. This is all for me. It's not for anybody else. Trying to find my link to my my Twitch. I'm lazy. Here we go. Copy link. Yeah, if you could drop me a follow, that would be amazing. If you could drop me a follow on Twitch, that would be amazing. But I can't tell if it. Yeah, there we go. I'm getting new. Like I said, I'm new to the YouTube streaming. I've just been posting some of these on YouTube, but now I don't have to do that. Yay. But yeah, I was gonna be. I might even make it where I'm on Twitch and YouTube at the same time when I stream these comic book reading things. But I think next episode we might be doing some Luke Cage Power Man from the 70s. I've got quite a few planned out, and the majority of them are John Byrne. John Byrne is my all-time favorite. John Byrne is a lot of people's all-time favorite, but he is my Oh, thanks for the follow. I just got the I just got the Twitch notification audio. Appreciate it so much. But like I said, I plan on doing. You're going to be seeing a lot of John Byrne, not only Chris Claremont, John Byrne, but some other writers with John Byrne as well. And obviously, I'm going to be doing some John Byrne Fantastic Four, where he's the writer and the artist. So, but I'm thinking next episode, Luke Cage Power Man, or some Captain America, Roger Stern, John Byrne. Captain America, some classic Captain America issues were a very, very short run. And I've got some backstory on that creative team, a little bit of behind the scenes backstory that I've read in some magazines a long time ago regarding that run of Roger Stern and John Byrne on Captain America right around 1980. And I was a big Captain America fan. He was maybe my fourth or fifth priority of the comic book that I would buy each month when I was younger. But the Roger Stern, John Byrne are classics. So I'm going to wrap it up right here. But I appreciate you hanging out, man, and chatting anytime. And I'll try to send out like notifications the next time I do this. I might even do a show tomorrow night. I've got some vacation time. I'm off this weekend, and I took 2 vacation days, so I might even go live tomorrow night for a little bit, and do another episode. So I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you stopping by, and I will see you later.